Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to show you how to install Pi-Hole and Pi-VPN on a Raspberry Pi. I will show you completely step by step on how to install a Pi-Hole and how to install Pi-VPN, and I will also give you a few examples in live environments. For example, as you can see on the screen here, I have a live environment running Pi-Hole from my own personal house, and I will show you how to connect your OpenVPN or your Pi-VPN technically to your Windows computer, your Linux computer, and possibly a cell phone if I can get it to work properly. I will go ahead and leave all the links in the downloads for Pi-Hole and Pi-VPN and everything we use in this video in the description down below. Also, I will go ahead and leave jump links down below for in case if you just want to install Pi-Hole or if you just want to install Pi-VPN. But I do recommend installing both of them together as they work wonderfully together to help secure and make your browsing history, your browsing history a much better experience than trying to reinstall ad blocker software and so on and so forth on all your devices. So with all that, let's go ahead and get started with installing Pi-Hole. Okay, first we're going to start to install Pi-Hole. Now, I prefer to install Pi-Hole first over Pi-VPN because it's DNS provided software, and when you install Pi-VPN, it will go ahead and ask you if you want to use your Pi-Hole as your DNS or you want to use another DNS query, and I usually link my Pi-Hole DNS to my Pi-VPN to begin with. So, to pretty much give you an idea of what Pi-Hole actually is, it's a network-wide ad-blocking DNS server for all your devices. That's laptops, desktops, Macs, Apple devices, Android devices, and so on and so forth. Majority of the people usually install as their DNS server on their routers, so they don't have to go ahead and install it per device as they see fit. It's a very lightweight software that goes installed on the Raspberry Pi, but as you can see on the screen here, it also works with Fedora, it also works with Ubuntu, CentOS, it also works with Debian and other different operating systems, as well as Docker as well if you're a Docker user. The nice thing about it too is, again, it is just an IP address when you're doing configuring for it in the end. So if you want to add this to your router, all you have to do is just go to your router settings and just change your DNS settings from your ISP provider to your Pi-Hole to go ahead and enable your Raspberry Pi as your DNS server for your ad blocking features. So with all that, let's go ahead and start at the beginning. What you're going to do is you want to click the install button here, and then what that's going to do is it's going to bring up a GitHub page that will pretty much break down how to actually install it. The way we're going to install today is we're going to install it with the one-step automated install. I've done this almost every time and never had a problem with it. Some people don't like piping in bash scripting with it. So if you're not familiar with it, or you're not comfortable with it, or you had problems in the past with it, you can do method 1 or 2. To give you an idea, method number 1 installs a repository, so you can go ahead and just update Pi-Hole by just typing in Pi-Hole every time you want to do an actual install or an update. Every time you also update your system, it'll go ahead and check Pi-Hole to make sure it's updated, and it'll update it as it needs to. If you just want to install it, see how it works, if you like it or not, method 2 will work fine. Pretty much method 2 just downloads everything from their GitHub page, and then you're just going to run the bash script to do the install. But for this, we're going to go ahead and actually do the automated install. So the first step is to pretty much copy this entire link here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. Open up your terminal and paste it into here. Now before we hit enter, there's a few things you may have to know about this before moving forward. It's a network device. It needs to have an Ethernet cable. You can use it with Wi-Fi, but it doesn't always work 100% with Wi-Fi. If your Wi-Fi ever goes down, your DNS server is no longer working, and then your internet's not going to work properly. Also, you must be static IP. So in my case here, I'm already static on my system using my 10.0.0.10. And as you can see here for my DNS, I use Google for default. That's just for preferencing right now, but later on we're going to end up changing this information at a later date in our actual router. So this is pretty much just going to be useless information. This is just to make sure that my actual system is running properly and not using another Pi-Hole that I'm using at the moment. So close that. Once you went ahead and set up the Ethernet cable for it and you're static, we're going to go ahead and hit enter on our terminal. Okay, it's going to ask you for your password. All right, you'll be greeted with this nice ASCII little design of a raspberry. And then the installation actually is very simple, very quick. It doesn't get very intrusive with it. So we're going to go step by step as per each page shows up for you. And I'm just going to go ahead and just make this a little bit larger for everybody. And then one other thing I did forget to mention, but I did do this earlier, is before you install any software, make sure your system is fully up to date by using the apt-get upgrade and update commands in your terminal before doing this. So you get welcomed with their greeting, which is letting you know what this is. Hit OK. Let you know please donate, and if you do like the software, I do recommend donating. And then let you know that you need a static IP, which we've already went ahead and did for us. So hit OK again. At this point, you can pick the DNS provider you want to use. We're going to go with Google as a default, but you can actually pick pretty much any one. Even if you have your own custom DNS servers, you're more than welcome to use that. But for this video, we're just going to use Google. All right, it's going to ask you for which ad blocking lists you want to use, and we're just going to leave both of them on at the moment. If you don't like a certain one, you're more than welcome to change it. If you want to use a different one, you can go back to the last page and pick a different DNS provider to add more to them. So hit OK. All right. Now in this case here, it's asking you which IPv version you want to use. Even though I don't use IPv6, I always leave it turned on. Just because in case if I ever upgrade to IPv6 in my home or business, I'm already set up with Pi-Hole and there's no reason to worry about trying to reconfigure it for it. So I'm going to hit OK again. Now it's just verifying your static IP and make sure the IP address that's shown on the screen is the one that you actually set your IP address to. If it's not, I would recommend going back, checking your network settings. If anything, you can also reboot and make sure again if it takes place. Sometimes it doesn't always take it when you do static. Hit yes. Letting you know right here, if you have an IP conflict, it's not going to work properly, and we're fully aware of that. So we made sure there is no IP conflict on our network with the IP address that we chose. Hit OK. All right, we want to keep the web admin interface turned on, so hit OK. We also, to have the web admin turned on, we have to make sure light TPD is turned on or installed, and we're going to go ahead and do that as well. So hit OK. All right. I want to log all the queries. This is a preference, but I do want all queries logged, only because if you want to change or add anything later on, you don't have to try to remember what the URL is. You can just quickly add it in the web admin interface. Hit OK. Again, this is a preference for how they want to actually show your logs and your privacy level. For me, I want to show everything because I want to be able to monitor and track any problems with it. If you're using this for anonymous reasons or you're giving this out for friends and everything else, you may want to pick one of the other ones where it should hide domain and clients or hide or anonymous, or just disable it completely so it keeps no track of any users or any log files for your Pi-Hole. But for this, we're going to click show everything and hit OK. And pretty much that is it. Now we're just going to wait for it to finish installing, and then we're going to be given a completion screen with our new password that's generated by Pi-Hole. And that is what the password we're going to use to be able to log into our Pi-Hole at every time. Okay, everything's all done. We get the installation complete dialog here, letting us know that what our IPv4 address is, our IPv6 if configured. Okay, it's letting us know here if we set a new IP address, we should restart the Pi, which we have not. Let you know where they install all the log files on the actual Raspberry Pi, and then how to get to the admin interface from here with our password here that we're going to copy and we're going to paste. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy this. All right, and I'm going to go to the actual website here as it tells me to, 10.0.0.10.admin or Pi-Hole admin. Now, because I actually have a Pi-Holes running on my system, if I go to here, it's going to probably cause a conflict. So we're just going to use the IP address of the actual Pi-Hole here. So we're going to go up to our web browser, open up a new one. I'm going to type in the actual IP address. Click on login. Paste the password. For me, I'm going to remember this for 7 days, but this is up to you if you want to do that or not. And that's it. So in this case here, we're already set and done with exactly what we have to do, for at least for the installation. Now we have to make sure that our servers, our computers, our devices, and everything all use Pi-Hole as a DNS query. So on your actual device, if you just want to use a single device, you would just go into your network settings like so, and you're going to change the actual DNS server, to the actual Pi-Hole you're using. Alright, and while we can get rid of that, hit apply, and that's it. So what it's going to do now is that every time it looks for a DNS, it's going to go right to here. This is going to forward through our ISP or other DNS, our Google DNS, which is 8.8.8.8. But it's going to, once it passes through that, it's going to verify which ones are ads and then go ahead and start blocking them. Alright, so in this case, we should be able to go ahead and reboot. Now, when I go over to our router here, okay, under pfSense, I have my DNS servers here. Now, these are the ones that are located here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and add one more. All right, now because I want to keep my other ones still up and running, I'm just going to end up moving them around a little bit. But then the first one here will be 10.0.0.10. Okay, then we go down to the bottom and hit save. And there we go. So if I go back to my main screen here, as you can see here, my DNS queries are local for my actual pfSense, my DNS server that we just created for our Pi-Hole, and then my other 2 Pi-Holes that are running in my actual live environment from here that is being pulled from my ISP or modem at the moment. And that is all we have to worry about here. Now, there are other things you can go ahead and do. You can go into group management, change out client information. You have your whitelist and your blacklisting here for if you want to add or remove certain domains from the listings. So what I'm going to actually do here is I'm just going to go ahead and show you one of the ones I have running live at the moment, which is this. And as you can see here, I have 22 clients connected to it. And it actually pulled out 48,000 queries, almost 49,000 queries. It's blocked 19,000 of them. Then it gives you a percentage of 39% of them are been blocked. And then I have my domains on block list, which means all the domains that I do not want the ads to go through are on that list, and it has blocked 84,000 that it knows of. Now, it hasn't blocked 84,000 total. It just has 84,000 domains on that list for blocking. And then it tells you all the queries you had over the time, which ones were blocked, at what time of the day, how many were permitted. All right. Then it tells you the client activities of all the different clients that connected, how many queries they had over that time frame. Then you get your query types. All right. All the different ones that were answered and how they were answered. And then you have your permitteds and your blocked. And then down here you have your client information of it. How many clients that it blocked or how many ads it blocked per client and how many total clients and how frequently they actually send requests through it. And then from here, you can also always go into clients and then see more about the information in here. You can go into groups if you have any actual group add-ons, if you had groups of people added to it. Your whitelist, your blacklist. If you just want to look at the log files here are all the different log files, let you know. So you can see here, this IP address was using Hulu. It was go ahead and blocked, but I can go ahead and add that to the whitelist. As you can see here, Instagram was used. If I don't want anybody using Instagram at all, I can go ahead and blacklist this thing. So anytime you go to Instagram, it's just going to give you an error. Same thing with if you're watching Hulu and so on, or Google from that. But that's very it. That's a very basic setup of how to set up Pi-Hole. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to actually set up our Pi-VPN to link to our Pi-Hole from here, and we're going to be able to actually use both of them together in the next part of this video. So let's hop right over to how to pretty much install the Pi-VPN. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to install Pi-VPN. And what Pi-VPN is a open VPN variation designed for the Raspberry Pi. You will create your own VPN server on the Raspberry Pi and download a client OVPN file, and then you'll be able to copy that to your devices such as your Linux computers, servers, laptops, desktops, whatever device you have that supports OpenVPN. The reason why you want this is that it gives you the privacy and the security you want as an actual VPN without having to purchase one from other companies like, say, ExpressVPN and so on. It also allows you to be anonymous when you're going to, for example, Starbucks and using their Wi-Fi, and you don't want people snooping in on what you're doing or keeping records of anything you're going to or what you're doing in general. So you would actually run your Open VPN client to connect to your Pi-VPN at your home, so you can keep everything encrypted and anonymous. The nice thing is that Pi-VPN also works with Pi-Hole very well. So you'll be able to get your ad blocking services as well as if you're connected to your Pi-VPN. So to begin, it's very simple. We're going to go to pivpn.io, and then we're just going to go ahead and copy this installation text installer. All right. So from there, we'll go ahead and copy and paste that. We're going to open up a terminal. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. We're going to copy and paste that into here. Again, you should have a Ethernet plugged into this, and you should be static for your IP address to use your OpenVPN. If you have not done that, please do that already as of right now. Otherwise, you're going to get errors, and it's just not going to work properly when you're installing your OpenVPN client setup. So from here, we're going to hit enter. It's going to go ahead, download everything, and just check for any upgrade packages that might be needed. It's then going to ask for your password. And go ahead and just make this just a little bit bigger. Okay, now it's pretty much just going with your welcome screen to let you know this is the automated installer for it. So we're going to hit OK. Then it's going to tell you that you need to make sure you have a static IP, and we do, so hit OK. Okay, and then from here you might get an error message saying that they're not sure if you're using Raspbian. Now, because I'm using this on a virtual, it doesn't register itself as a Raspbian operating system, so I will get an error message like this, but it won't stop me from installing this. It'll work just fine using this. What you cannot do, obviously, as you can read here, it says you can't install this on a cloud-based setup like Amazon or Azure virtual PCs. It will not function properly because the IP addresses can change at any given time with them. And it just doesn't work properly with their version of static IPs on the cloud-based software. So if you're going to do this, make sure you do this on an actual live machine running in your home, preferably an actual Raspberry Pi. So from here, hit OK. It's going to ask you which user you want to choose. Now I'm going to pick my user because it's the only user I can pick from. Sometimes you might get other users like Pi-Hole and so on like that. Just pick the default, which is either a username you created that's the admin, or Pi if that's available for you. Hit OK. Now from here, it's going to ask you which kind of installation you want to use. Do you want to use WireGuard or OpenVPN? For this tutorial, we're going to use OpenVPN, but if you're familiar with WireGuard and you prefer to use WireGuard, because it's more modern than OpenVPN, you're more than welcome to. But for this case, we're just going to use OpenVPN as our actual install. Hit OK. Now it's going to ask you here, do you want to change any of the protocols or installation mode? So if you want to change from UDP to TCP, if you want to put in custom search domains, if you want to change the encryption level, you're more than welcome to. But again, this is just a basic install and explanation of how to install Pi-VPN. So we're going to skip all that and leave that as default by hitting no. And the next question that will pop up and ask you is your port number. I do want to stress to you that you should change your port number. Don't leave any ports default. Hackers know what they are. Security experts know who they are. Pretty much anybody with Google can figure out what the default ports are for your devices and your software. So with anything here, I would always recommend changing your port number to something completely different that you can remember or anybody else can without having to kind of compromise your system. The same thing goes with like SSH and stuff like that. If you're using SSH, change the default port number to something different. So in this case here, I'm going to leave it as default just because it's a video tutorial and this will be done, burnt up by the time I'm done with making the video. But I do recommend changing this to something else. Just add an extra number at the end of it. You can always change the whole number completely, but do change the number. Do not leave it default. Okay, verify the port number you chose is correct. If you did pick a different port number, please write it down just so you can remember for later, because you do have to port forward in your router for this to work. So we're going to go ahead and hit yes. Now, if you have Pi-Hole installed, it's going to find Pi-Hole as that and ask you if you want to use your DNS server. And in my case, I do. If you do not want to, you can hit no and you can choose the DNS server of your choice. But for me, I want to use Pi-Hole as my DNS server. Next question is, do you want to use your public IP or a DNS? So in my case, I'm just going to use my public IP just for the video tutorial. But the DNS entry, I would recommend anybody using. So if you have a website called Tiny Tim PCs that link to your house, I would recommend using that as your actual your client information for the IP to connect. So we're going to hit OK for this. Now it's going to go ahead and create the keys for you. Now, as you can see here, it detected UFW because I have that installed. So because I have it installed, it's going to go ahead and add all the firewall rules to it as well by pretty much just adding port 1194 in and out of it. Okay, now it's asking if you want to do unintended upgrades. And I do recommend turning that on, especially if you plan on leaving this in the corner of your office and never touching it again. So every time an upgrade or an update comes through, it automatically would do it for you instead of you having to remember to log in there for security patches and upgrades. And that is it. You're all ready to go with that. All we have to do is run Pi-VPN.add to create our client profile. So from here, we're going to hit OK. And for this case, you should reboot the system just to make sure everything takes place. But to save a little more time with everything, I'm just going to hit no. Now, for me, I'm going to go ahead and check my UFW. And as you can see here, it went ahead and added 1194, to my firewall as well and my IPv6 firewall. So we're all good to go with that. As you can see here, I've also changed a few ports too as well and added anything for this tutorial or for our previous tutorials. So we're going to type in now Pi-VPN add. Okay, and then from here it's just going to tell you all the different stuff you want to do. Now if you are using an ISO device, you need to make sure you add the TAC-I in there to create the certificate for it. Otherwise it will not work on your Apple devices at all. So that's just a little tip for you on that one. But for here, we're just going to go ahead and type in the client name. So I want to just type in the word client because that's all I'm going to call it. Okay. How many days, not minutes, not hours, how many days should the certificate last? I'm going to pick 10,000 days, but if you want to just do, say, 20 days, for it. So that means every 20 days you have to go ahead and rerun this client over and over again to give new access. So it's just based on your security preferences for this one. But I'm just going to leave this as default for right now. All right. Enter the password for the client. I always recommend typing in a password for the client. And the reason for that is in case somebody actually steals your .ovpn file, they need to know your password as well to be able to use it and connect to your network. So I do always recommend always putting a password on anything like that. It might be a pain to do, but honestly, I'd rather have the extra security than not. And that's it. So it went ahead, created the file. I'm going to show you where they located the file here. Okay, they create a folder called OVPNS. And here is our OVPNS client. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to hop over to my other virtual, my Linux Mint operating system. I'm going to end up copying this file over to that server, or operating system technically. And I'm going to show you how to connect using OpenVPN on that Linux machine to connect to this. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and log into my Windows machine. And I'm going to show you how to connect to OpenVPN using the same one through a Windows machine as well. So I'll be right back. Okay, so now I'm on my Linux Mint virtual machine, and I'm going to go ahead and show you that I already have the client OVPN copied and pasted over. Now, to go ahead and do that, I did write out this little script here, but because I use encryptions and everything else and different ports, it's just much easier to pretty much plug it into a USB stick and just copy and paste it over. But if you are actually want to just copy and paste that via SCP to file transfer it from one Linux device to another, this is pretty much what you're going to be looking at here, especially if it's from a Raspberry Pi. Alright, so first things first, we're going to open up a terminal. And I want to make sure I actually have OpenVPN installed. Now, for most companies and operating systems, they usually have it, but it doesn't hurt to take a quick look. And I do. Perfect. And then to actually run OpenVPN, all it is just copying and pasting sudo OpenVPN, okay, and then tilde /downloads/client.ovpn. Now, if you have it in a different location, obviously this portion of it is going to change for some of you, but for the most part, for me, I just put it right into the downloads folder and then copy and paste it from there. And from here, we're going to go ahead and click enter. It's going to ask you for the private key, and there we go. And that's it. So now at the moment, I'm completely connected to our OpenVPN server on my Raspberry Pi or my Raspberry VM at the moment. As you can see at the bottom there, it lets me know where it's connected to and the IP address and the port number it's going through. I can see the encryptions and everything. For this case here, you do not want to actually close out this window, otherwise it will disconnect you from your OpenVPN connection. You always want to leave this open. If you're done and you don't want to do it and you no longer want to use the client anymore, you can go ahead and just type in the word exit. Oops, I'm sorry, hit Control Z and it'll go ahead and stop the actual OpenVPN. Type in exit to stop all the jobs with it, or you can just close out of it completely. And that's fairly simple. It's very simple to use on Linux, especially if you're trying to use an OpenVPN. But what I'm going to do now is we're going to hop over to the Windows machine, and I'm going to show you how to do it on a Windows machine right now using OpenVPN client you can download from OpenVPN's website. Okay, so now I'm on my Windows device, right, and we're going to have to download the OpenVPN Connect client. So from here, we're going to go to openvpn.net, click Get OpenVPN, and then from there you can go ahead and download the OpenVPN Connect version 3 for Windows 7, 8, and 10. If you also have 32 bits, version of it as well, you can download that. Pretty much you'll download it, install it. I'm not going to show you how to do that. If you don't know how to download and install software at this moment, you may want to refer to other videos at this time. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and run the software, and it'll pop up just like this. So you get your OpenVPN Connect. It's going to ask you if you want to import your file via URL or file. URL is if somebody gives you a URL to download it to and connect to it. We don't have that. We're just doing it via file. So we're going to click on file. Now you can drop and drag it into here, or if you want, you can just go ahead and click browse like I'm going to. Click on client OVPN, hit open. Now from here you got a couple of choices. You can hit save the private key password if you want. You'll just type it in, it'll automatically save it. As a security personnel, I do not expect you or want you to do this unless you can guarantee 100% nobody's ever going to use the device that you're connecting to this VPN from. But if you want to be lazy, you're more than welcome to go ahead and type in the password for that. And then at the end, you can go ahead and click connect after import. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave these two unchecked. For profile name, I'm just going to change it to Raspberry Pi VPN. And I'm going to click on add. Now from here, we're just going to go ahead and click the little slider to activate it. It's going to ask you for your password. Go ahead and type that in, hit OK. And that's it. Now we're connected to our OpenVPN. Very simple, very easy to go with. As I said, the whole process from start to finish takes no more than maybe 20 minutes. And as you can see here, we did it on Linux, we did it on Windows. Unfortunately, I was going to show you on Android, but I'm having a problem with my screen capturing software on Android, so I'm going to have to skip that for this one. But I'll probably make an updated video later on how to do that as an attachment to this. But I think that's everything. I think we covered everything from how to install Pi-Hole and Pi-VPN. So I do hope anybody enjoyed the video. Hope it was helpful. Hope it was somewhat informative to somebody out there who's trying to just do this for the first time. So like anything else, like, subscribe to the channel. I try to do as much as I possibly can with the Raspberry Pi, with Linux operating system, virtualization, and I am working on a pfSense lab tutorial to show people how to make that in virtualization, and make an actual multi-LAN connection pfSense lab for your home, so you can test out multiple connections and all the other extra features you get with pfSense instead of just having a WAN and LAN port for that. So, if anything, I hope you guys had a great day today. I hope everything was all worthwhile, and I will check you all in the next video. So, see you later.